Hi, I'm Bill Sproul. The Keystone Mountain Lakes Regional Council of Carpenters is committed to educating the public about critical economic issues that affect their daily lives. That is why we are proud to support important programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation, Holy Name Medical Center in Teaneck, New Jersey, healing begins here, New Jersey Resources, Keystone Mountain Lakes Regional Council of Carpenters, your future is in our building, and by Guarini Institute for Government and Leadership at St. Peter's University. Promotional support provided by NJ Advance Media and AM 970 The Answer.
Welcome to State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. We, in fact, are coming to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio in beautiful Newark, New Jersey. It's our pleasure to introduce two guests who's been with us before, two experts who know politics and government, Dale Florio, Republican strategist and founder, Princeton Public Affairs Group, and Philip Alagia, Democratic strategist, chief of staff in beautiful Essex County, where we are taping. Good to see you, gentlemen.
Good to see you.
Nice to be here.
Full disclosure, we're doing this program a few weeks after a historic race. Congress goes Democrat, the House. Senate stays Republican. What do you think that means in terms of the ability of folks to work together on the issues that matter in our lives, Dale Florio?
Steve, hope springs eternal.
But what do you think?
I'm not very optimistic. I mean, the President, Trump, has shown a proclivity to stir the pot. And it looks, at least as of today, that Nancy Pelosi may be the...
Let's assume she is. What do you think it means?
Well, then you have a California leader and you have a New York leader, Senator Schumer, East and West Coast, very liberal-minded legislators, and Trump. It's just not going to mix.
It's
a toxic mixture.
A toxic mix. So Philip Alagia from my old neighborhood in the North Ward of Newark, New Jersey, you knew politics then, and you know it even better now. You say?
It's the most divisive time. I mean, we talked about how in the past Democrats and Republicans would be in the legislature, would be in Congress, but they'd get together afterwards to talk about things. I don't think you see that anymore. Either you're left or you're right. Either you're red or you're blue.
Is it worse?
From my perspective, absolutely. I mean, I don't think you're going to get things done. I think you want to get victories. You don't want to get compromised.
You know, the one thing, and I don't want to be overly philosophical with two guys who understand the nuts and bolts of politics and campaigns, but I've been thinking about this a lot. You ever notice how people who say, and again, Phil and I grew up in the same neighborhood, know a lot of the same people. Some of those folks in suburban Essex and other places, they like Donald Trump. They believe in him. And so if you get into a conversation with them and say, you know, you see how the president said this thing about women or someone's appearance? Oh, that's ridiculous. Look at the economy. And I'll ask where they get their information. And here's the point I'm making. And by the way, my progressive friends, same thing. Hate him no matter what he does. And here's my point. Do you notice more and more that people who have a certain point of view basically get the information they want to get and need to get that reinforces what they already believe, don't look at anything else? Or am I making too much of that, Dale?
You're not. I mean, research data says that people go and they look for information from places that they're inclined to agree with. We've had this conversation before, Steve. Social media has done so much positive for the world at large, but I think it's also driven a stake in our ability politically to agree, to disagree, and then move on. When somebody can run and do a press conference or put something out over a tweet and go to millions of people that get energized and excited, it doesn't allow for much conversation in between. And both sides use it effectively. And to Phil's point, it's become very polarized, and there's never any time in the middle to take time out to talk things through.
But look at you guys. I mean, you guys have known each other a lot of years, operatives. But in government's about getting things done. Both of you have worked to get things done. Are you the anomaly?
I think there's a significant difference between the branches of government. I think an executive has to get things done, where the Congress and the Senate and the local council and stuff, they have a different perspective because they're not leading their municipality, their town, their state. The governor has a different position than the legislature, who can philosophize and make laws and do different things, but doesn't have to get as many things done.
And legislators can what? Just throw bombs and be critical, and that's it?
Absolutely.
And they're not accountable for what they do?
Well, I think they are accountable, but it's significantly
in their
easier
minds
to throw bombs. And you don't have to get results.
So bring it back to New Jersey. We have a Democratic governor. We have 2 houses of the legislature, both Democrats. Why is there some gridlock in the State House if everybody's a Democrat in control?
Because of I'll put some of that blame on redistricting. When you look at the legislative districts in New Jersey, they're pretty safe. There might be 4 or 5 districts.
Define safe.
Meaning that if you're a Democrat or Republican, you're going to probably win by north of 55% every time, and many in the 60
Well,
and 65%.
how does that hurt the process?
Because legislators don't have to be as accountable to their voters. They say they are, right? But if you're in a district that could go either way, human nature is you're just going to pay more attention to what your district is saying. When you're not, I think the political quotient goes much higher. So when you have a very safe legislature and a governor who's now there for a couple of years, it leads to partisan battles or nonpartisan battles, as the case may be.
Donald Trump, you say?
I say it's embarrassing that he's our president.
Really?
Absolutely.
Like, take
From my
politics away. You've been a Democrat your whole life. Take it away.
Absolutely.
As a leader.
Misogynistic. He's someone who just says the wrong things at the wrong times. You know, my children ask me questions when I have the news on that I don't want to answer because of our president. There's some things, listen, I'm not going to say everything's wrong. The economy's in great shape, but he just needs to watch what he says. Words matter, Steve. Dealing with this whole caravan, the way he's dealing with pitting one side against the other, calling himself a nationalist, it's embarrassing.
I don't like his style. I like some of the...
It's not yours.
It certainly isn't.
You've always been a gentleman.
I don't like his style, but I do like some of his initiatives.
Can you separate them, Dale?
It's getting harder and harder, Steve. And I saw it...
You were the Republican chairman of a very significant Republican county up in Somerset.
It's getting
you
harder.
Really don't. It's
well. I have to look. I have to look locally. I haven't seen a wave like we just saw in this past election at the congressional level since Jim Florio was wiped out.
You mean the Democratic wave?
The Democratic wave that brought us to 11-1 congressional delegation split, Democrat to Republican. I haven't seen this kind of wave since Jim Florio was wiped out in his midterm elections when both houses went Republican. And I believe veto-proof majorities.
Was that largely about Trump, this 11-1 majority for the Dems?
Without a doubt. Trump at the top of the ticket and New Jersey's attitudes toward him certainly attracted some very good candidates. I think the Democrats fielded some pretty good candidates against some strong incumbents.
But he was a major factor.
But he was a major factor.
Phil?
Absolutely. I mean, we saw numbers in areas, we picked up a freeholder seat in Somerset County. Burlington County now has Democratic freeholders, and I think it's all because these middle voters came out not to vote against Trump, and it was really a big benefit.
Well, what does it do? Sorry for interrupting, Phil. What does it do for people like Jon Bramnick? John's a regular guest of our leader of the Republican Party in the lower house in the Assembly. He wrote a piece. He said on the floor of the legislature, hey, we need to stop demonizing each other. We need to just disagree without saying rotten personal things about each other. He got pushback from a lot of Republicans who said, keep your mouth shut and you don't represent all of us. I'm thinking, Dale, he's trying to do it the right way, and some Republicans don't want that. Look at you just looking at me like that. Because you agree with him. You agree with Bramnick. I know you do.
Republicans are in a very difficult position. You want to, right? You want to support your president if he's of your party.
On policy.
Well, in everything, you'd like to embrace the style, but it's difficult, and you just have to look at the numbers. The numbers don't lie, and that's what's making Republicans kind of scratch their head.
Look at the Senate race that was just completed.
Bob Menendez wins that race.
Most of the advertising on both sides was negative. They didn't talk as much about issues. It was about all these sordid tales, but unfortunately, negative campaigning works. No one wants it, but it moves the needle.
Trump's style trumped Bob Menendez's ethics problems.
That's interesting. Gentlemen, keep coming back and breaking it down. And I'm also curious governmentally how things move forward. Dale, Florio, and Philip Alagia, thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks, Steve.
State of Affairs.
Thank you.
We'll be right back, right after this, promise.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
I recently moderated a forum hosted by Choose New Jersey on a new federal initiative called Opportunity Zones. Now, this is a program that looks to spur economic investment in communities throughout the country. Now, many of those communities are, in fact, right here in New Jersey. At the forum, I spoke to elected officials, business leaders, and others about opportunity zones and why they matter in New Jersey and, of course, across the country. Here now are those interviews. This forum, as engaging as it is, dealing with real-life issues, the part of the strategic direction of Choose New Jersey?
Absolutely. Choose New Jersey is going to start to evolve. It is a wonderful organization, has the ability to convene some of the best folks and some of the folks that will actually end up to be able to articulate what the economy needs and be a liaison to the community.
Thanks so
this community. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, you've been involved in economic development in the city even before, well before you were mayor. What do these opportunity zones potentially mean to the redevelopment in a city like Newark?
Well, it's an infusion of investment in areas that have been neglected for at least 5 decades or more in this city. Helps us, expedite the kind of development that's already happening, but also push some real development in parts of the community that need it so desperately. And I don't think if this legislation didn't exist, we would be able to have this kind of investment opportunity here. Financial institutions, other folks are not investing in neighborhoods that need it the most. It's just not happening. This is a way to incentivize them to get that done. This is a first step, and so we are eager to see what happens out of this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Frank Giantomasi knows the city of Newark very well. We're at the Choose New Jersey Forum with Senator Booker. Governor Murphy, talking about quote-unquote opportunity zones. This project could mean a lot. You know a lot about redevelopment.
Critical to towns like Newark. This is probably the single best thing that the urban centers can get from the Trump tax package. The impacts of this are dramatic. I predict that you'll see more infusion of dollars from liquidating events of stocks or real estate with capital gains issues into urban centers. I think that Newark, Patterson, Camden will be direct beneficiaries. I'm so excited to hear what's being said today and to have the partnership of Governor Murphy with our federal guy, Cory Booker, who's writing the regulations which are going to control how this is all defined. I think today is a great day for New Jersey, and it shows that we're moving the state forward.
Thank you, Frank.
It's an honor. Thank you, Steve.
We're here with our good friend Linda Bowden from PNC. We just listened to Governor Murphy and United States Senator Cory Booker, Opportunity Zone projects. The connection to the banking community, what does it mean?
Oh, well, I'll tell you, New Jersey is an enormous opportunity for us, and the better our neighbors do, the better our communities do, all boats rise, including our banking industry. We can, as people go back to work, as people make money, as people support their families, as people reinvest in the community, they need a place to save. They need someone to help them with their financial planning. They need to ensure that they're saving for their children. And so we would love to be a part of that solution.
This is a big deal. I mean, there are a lot of economic development initiatives talked about in terms of urban communities. This feels different?
It does, because I've never seen this kind of financial incentive. I think it's very exciting, and what I particularly like about this is any investor can participate. This is not something lofty that only a very select few can participate in. Anyone can participate in this. Everyone in New Jersey can be part of the solution here.
Mayor, we just listened to Senator Booker and Governor Murphy talk about these opportunity zones. Now, your community, Bridgeton, right?
Yes, Bridgeton, South Jersey.
Now, we're in Newark. We've heard about your community. You've actually been on with us before. What could these initiatives, these opportunity zone initiatives mean in a community like yours?
A city like Bridgeton, which we are one of the smaller urban areas, and so the opportunity zones can make a great impact. We are trying to build on our food industry because we're a city surrounded by farms, and our investments are in food and dairy. And so this could be a game changer for our community.
So say an investor, potential investor says, I'd like to go to Bridgeton, but you're saying these opportunity zone tax incentives, particularly on the capital gains side, make a big difference.
Yes, it would make a big difference. Small towns like Bridgeton are often overlooked, especially in New Jersey, also in South Jersey, between Atlantic City and Camden. So this was one weapon that we can share, we can use to attract businesses and see that they can make money in cities like Bridgeton.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
The leaders in the business community are, in fact, here at this Choose New Jersey event. We just listened to Senator Booker, Governor Murphy talk about these opportunity zone projects. Michele, Siekerka, I get to Tom Braken in a second. What could it really mean?
Well, what it means is creating a great opportunity for investment at the local level. I mean, we do know there's capital gains money sitting on the sidelines, so this is a great opportunity for investors to give back into their own communities. And we know there's folks out there that want to do that. We see impact investing all the time.
And Tom, you not only know the business community, you know the banking community in particular from your past experience. Big impact? What kind of impact?
It could have a big impact. I mean, if we can package this with some other things in the state and provide this great tax benefit to investors because of where we are location-wise, it could have a huge impact. But there's got to be other pieces in place, Steve, to make this work effectively.
Like?
Well, the competitive issue we have, the affordability issue, if we can work on some of those things and combine it with this, then we have something that I think we can compete very effectively around the country.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Michele.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
State of Affairs is pleased to welcome once again Dr. Shereef Elnahal, who's the Commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Health. Good to see you, Commissioner.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
We're taping on the 13th of November. Things will evolve quickly. Our partners here at NJTV News will cover this story on a regular basis. It is the adenovirus outbreaks up at the Wanacue Center. 10 children, as we are speaking right now, have lost their lives. The role of the Department of Health here is?
Well, it's a really tragic situation, Steve, and our role is to assist the facility as much as possible in making sure that they contain the virus as much as they can. We don't have as many tools for adenovirus as we do for other types of outbreaks. There's no cure medicinally, there's no vaccine. It really depends on every staff member for every patient following all the protocols, having gowns, gloves, washing hands thoroughly for every patient. And that's what we're making sure they do, both in assistance, but also enforcing those standards through our mechanisms.
One more follow-up question on this. Is there a reason why the rest of the state of New Jersey, particularly those of us with children, need to be worried?
This is not a risk to the general public, Steve, thankfully. This is not normally a virus that causes severe illness in folks with normal immune systems. Unfortunately, at this facility, you have a lot of medically fragile children.
Their system's compromised, their immune system.
Exactly. The immune system, the part of your body that fights infections. And these children, it's compromised relative to the general population. And so they're particularly at risk, which is why you're seeing a lot of the bad outcomes.
If you're listening to us on the audio, the radio side, Steve Adubato here, State of Affairs with the Commissioner of the Department of Health. Dr. Elnahal, let me ask you this. Let's talk about the whole question of, and again, timing's interesting here as well. There are these open enrollment periods as it relates to the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare. There's an initiative, we'll put up on the screen right now. It is called Get Covered NJ. What is it, and what does it have to do with getting covered?
I really appreciate you asking about that, Steve. It's a really critical time for people to get coverage, especially for those who are uninsured. We have a lot of options available to folks. This is open enrollment period for the Affordable Care Act.
What is that period exactly?
That period is from November 1st through December 15th. It's a 6-week period.
So if this is seen after, if this edition of State of Affairs is seen after that, then what?
So that's why we're really trying to get the word out as much as possible. We have a website out there, getcovered.nj.gov,
right.
That really allows folks to get on and see all of their options in a really simple and easy way. And we have some of the benefit of the Governor Murphy's policies that have made these plans even more affordable this year than they have been. 10% lower premiums on average than in previous years, thanks to work of the Department of Banking and Insurance, our Department, Human Services, and getting the word out. And the governor is very committed to getting as many people as possible enrolled.
Let me ask you, Commissioner, when it comes to autism, this is an issue that you and your colleagues have taken a great interest in. The New Jersey Autism Center of Excellence, what is it? Its connection to Rutgers University. Why does it matter to everyone in the state?
Yeah, so autism is a really important problem, especially in New Jersey. Arguably, we have some of the highest rates reported because we are among the best states in the country in recognizing and diagnosing autism. And what centers like this do, what our Council on Autism does out of the department, is allows for better clinical care and more research going forward in how to fight autism and prevent it. And so that's what these organizations do.
By the way, check our website, which will be up right now. We're doing a comprehensive multi-part series on autism, how prevalent it is, how the state is dealing with it, how not-for-profit organizations are dealing with it. But my question is, because you're a medical doctor, you understand these issues very well, how prevalent is autism?
Autism is a lot more prevalent than you think. You have a lot of children that grow up without a diagnosis because parents don't know about the signs to look for. And that's why it's important to get as many people access to a pediatrician and folks who are able to help and give assistance to families as possible. And so New Jersey is far ahead of other states. We have a lot more room to go in fighting autism, and Department of Health is front and center in that.
Final question here. How early can you think it's realistic to potentially recognize the signs that a child has or is somewhere on the autism spectrum, if you will?
You can recognize them pretty early. There are a lot of milestones for normal social development, the ability to smile and respond to family members, to parents. All of those things can be recognized early. The diagnosis comes a little bit later. But having a regular follow-up with pediatricians that's looking for these milestones really helps.
Commissioner, again, having a health commissioner with a clinical background matters. The opioid crisis in the state. There's thinking here that there is a way to help those who are dealing with opioid issues, who are addicted to opioids, with cannabis. Help us understand that initiative in the clinical thinking.
Oh, absolutely, Steve. First of all, there are actually studies out there that show that medical marijuana is an effective replacement for opioids in pain control. As part of the governor's reforms in our medical marijuana program, we've added pain as a diagnosis for which people can get medical marijuana. Pain is a tricky problem to treat. You only have on one side your Tylenol, your Advil, medications like that. On the other side, you have opioids with all of those risks associated with it, and you don't have as much in the middle. Medical marijuana is a very effective treatment for pain. It's also much lower risk for opioid treatment. We're also considering it as an addition to medication-assisted treatment, which is the evidence-based standard of care for opioid addiction, to have medical marijuana come in as an adjunct, as an addition to that therapy to help people bridge into recovery who are addicted.
We actually kicked off our series called The Future of Healthcare in New Jersey and the Nation with the commissioner a few months back, and we're continuing that conversation by talking about a range of issues. You see the chyron there that makes it clear that this is part of the future of healthcare discussion. So I'm curious about this. I asked you about this once before. I'm going to ask you again. One of the other initiatives we're involved in has to do with, it's called Right from the Start NJ. The site will be up right now. It's dealing with infants and toddlers and their needs. Now, there's a whole child care issue that we deal with other colleagues in the administration about, Carol Johnson and others. But from a health perspective, birth to 3 matters so much because?
It's a really critical time for development, Steve. These are the times when a healthy relationship with caregivers and family members means so much for the development and functioning of children as they grow up. Reading to your children is so important for their brain development. There are studies that show that simply by reading to a child every night, their performance in school, their performance professionally, all of that really, really matters. And so emphasizing what parents can do, what families can do during that critical time frame is really important.
1 minute left. What have I missed? 2019, top 2 or 3 goals?
Really want to make sure we enroll as many people as possible in the Affordable Care Act, as I mentioned, getting more people access to medical marijuana, and finally tackling the opioid epidemic, which is affecting so many lives.
Real quick, go back on this. The whole question of open enrollment, does that mean if it's not the open enrollment period, like post, not like, but it is post December 15th, you cannot enroll?
Yeah, the enrollment period closed, and unfortunately, the Trump administration truncated the time frame. They shortened it.
And they also, didn't they reduce the amount of funding for advertising and promotion and public awareness?
They did, and in response, the state has tried to fill that gap by funding navigators much more generously, and you have multiple departments engaged in that. So we're trying to fill in a gap that was purposely put in place by the Trump administration to get more people.
Real quick, before I let you go, does it open up again at a later point after the 15th of December?
Not until next year, which is why this critical period is so important for people to enroll.
Commissioner Shereef Elnahal is Commissioner of New Jersey Department of Health. He has a huge job, and I want to thank you for joining us in State of Affairs once again.
Thank you, Steve.
I'm Steve Adubato. Thank you for watching this edition of State of Affairs. Follow me on Twitter at Steve Adubato. Check you out next week. Thanks so much. Thanks, Commissioner.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Varus NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by the Turl Fund, supporting right from the start NJ, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, New Jersey Sharing Network, Holy Name Medical Center in Teaneck, New Jersey, New Jersey Resources, Keystone Mountain Lakes Regional Council of Carpenters, and by Guarini Institute for Government and Leadership at St. Peter's University.
Hi, I'm Judge Michael Giles. As a trauma surgeon, my son, Randy, saved lives every day of his career. When he unexpectedly passed away at the age of 43, Randy continued to save lives as an organ and tissue donor. The New Jersey Sharing Network was with us when Randy gave the gift of life. They are committed to saving lives through organ and tissue donation and educating the public about the importance of donation and transplantation.